I hope you had a great weekend. I hope none of your players are injured, but just in case they are, we're going to be updating fantasy football rankings for week 8 based off all the injuries that we've had over the past 28 hours. And it's Saturday night, so we know most things. It was labeled yesterday that Jaden Daniels was a game time decision. They don't activate Sam Hartman here, which is interesting. And it makes me think that Daniels may actually have a realistic shot of playing. If you go over to the rankings on the site, I previously had ranked Daniels as a quarterback that had no chance. But now at this point, I think I'd be willing to play Daniels over the likes of Jared Goff, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Caleb. All these lower tier quarterbacks under the assumption that Daniels is good to go. If for whatever reason you're sitting there with like both Jordan Love and Jaden Daniels on your team and Daniels does play, then at that point, I don't necessarily think you need to roll the dice, but very interesting to know that he has a shot to play this week. Now, Tajee Spears listed as out for week 8, so realistically speaking, we are kind of already assuming that this was going to happen. If you look at a ranking of Tony Pollard, a lot of this has to do with, one, the matchup. You're going up against the Detroit Lions, so we want to lower expectations based off how good this Lions defense is at guarding against the run, but also the fact that this is the largest spread of any game this week. Right now the Lions are about 10.5-point favorites. Now, with all that being said, because you have no Spears, Pollard's a lock for 20-plus opportunities with the receiving role. So you still probably start Tony Pollard. You just have to go through and lower your expectations in general. Jonathan Brooks downgraded to week 8. So, you'll see this in the rankings too. We have Chuba Hubbard right next to Tony Pollard, right? Both these running backs will have massive workloads in garbage offenses in bad matchups. They're both going to have receiving usage. They're very, very similar. If you have them, you probably have to start them because of the raw amount of volume that they're going to see. However, you're going to lower your expectations based off the matchups and the offense that they are playing in. Now, this is something that everybody was spamming the live chat with last night. Everybody's spazzing about Dalvin Cook. You go over to Sleeper and Dalvin Cook's the #1 trending player. And a lot of people, at least in the chat last night, were saying, oh my gosh, Kareem Hunt was good. Does this mean Dalvin still has it? Obviously, the reason you're going to see these running backs, draw comparisons is, one, you can go through and you can look at the fact that they are both drafted in 2017. 2, they are both free agents that were signed last year. They're both free agents going into this season that were signed. So there are some comparisons. I want to be on record. I don't think Dalvin Cook's the starting running back here in Dallas. You probably shouldn't pick him up. I still think it is Rico Dowdle. Now, I would be willing to maybe move Dowdle down our rankings just a little bit here, going, oh, okay, well, I guess there is an outside chance that this is a little bit more of a running back by committee than we initially gave it credit to be. And also, obviously, it is just an absolute brutal matchup against the Niners. So maybe we slide Dowdle down behind guys like Chubb, Stevenson, but just because the offense is going to be so much better than what you have with the Raiders and the Giants, I'm still fine putting Dowdle as like the borderline flex play. Probably not excited about it though, right? And I think you can definitely use the Dalvin news as a reason to bench Dowdle, but not as a reason to think that Dowdle is going to be the running back 2 in this backfield, if that makes sense. But yeah, like we said, Daniels is still going to be that game time decision. We don't have official word on Jacoby Myers just yet. For me, I personally wouldn't be super excited to go through and start Myers regardless. Quentin Johnston listed as doubtful for week 8. It doesn't matter. I will be interested. I actually have to start Ladd potentially in the Flock League. Can we see if Underdog has pick'ems out with Ladd right now? I'm actually surprised to see them have Ladd at higher, lower 50.5 receiving yards. I was more excited to start Ladd last week. Honestly, now it's going to be a little bit tougher seeing the volume that you had from Herbert last week and Ladd didn't dominate. But if you're in a situation in which you still have these guys like DJ Chark, Quentin Johnston potentially missing this game, maybe you can consider them. If you wanted to check out those underdog picks, though, I actually don't like the Lad pick. I would probably avoid that myself. But what I did find is Underdog actually has two interesting things to look at. The Jonathan Taylor to score a touchdown and the David Montgomery to score a touchdown. I mean, if you are just looking at both of these together, I'm probably not super excited about it unless you're able to actually use that 50% profit boost token that Underdog has put out there. So if you see this in your lobby, I actually don't mind going with the Jonathan Taylor to have a touchdown, Montgomery to have a touchdown based off the environments that they'll be in. We'll get to Jonathan Taylor in just a second. But if you use, say, that 50% profit boost token and we go through and put maybe, say, $19 on this, it would be 19 to win 82. And at the same time, Jonathan Taylor has vulture protection. So if Taylor were to get vultured at the goal line, you actually get a refund on that entry. So I'm interested in this if you have that 50% profit boost token, which I think most people have right now in their lobby. And also, if you use code FLOCK on Underdog, whether it was 2 years ago, last year, yesterday, today, tomorrow, you will have the free Malik Neighbors pick as well, more than less than half a total yard for Monday night, as long as you use code FLOCK. And if you are new to Underdog Fantasy with code FLOCK, you will get an additional 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you would get that free Dak Prescott pick for tomorrow night as well, more than less than half a total yard. And you'll get a free team review in the live stream we're doing every single night. So you can make sure that you take advantage of this with the link in the description and comment section. But let's move this back over to the injury updates that we have. We still don't have an update with George Kittle, sadly. I really hope we get something tomorrow morning. Obviously, I'll be live streaming all night, late tonight, all day tomorrow morning. And as soon as we get anything about these Niners players, I will let you know. The issue, of course, with the Niners specifically is these are players that play on Sunday night. So if Kittle is potentially going to miss, and maybe you don't have an option you could pivot to like Pat Frymuth for Monday night, I wouldn't fault you for playing a different tight end in like the noon slate or the 3 p.m. slate tomorrow. But if we get clarity that Kittle is going to go, obviously you need to go ahead and play him. Or if you had Kittle and no backup tight end and you could pick up like Pat Frymuth who plays Monday night and roll the dice to see if Kittle will be good to go on or not on Sunday. And then if he's not, you can pivot over to Frymuth on Monday. That would be ideal. But as it stands right now, we don't have any updates with Kittle. We don't have any updates with Deebo Samuel either. We do know that Juwan Jennings is out for week 8. So for me, we moved Ricky Pearsall up. I mean, a few slots here. I have Pearsall at wide receiver 40, right in the same range. I'm actually going to move Romeo Doubs up. I've been saying that we were going to do that. I'd rather play him over Keenan. Actually, I'd rather play Doubs over Hopkins. I'd rather play him over Kirk. We're going to put Doubs up at 33. But anyway, if you're looking at Ricky Pearsall, I mean, this is a wide receiver that I drafted in a ridiculous amount of underdog drafts this offseason. Like, I'm really hoping he comes out here and crushes. I actually picked him up in the Flock League myself before we had these injuries in San Fran. For me, I'm planning on benching him this week. I think it's kind of I don't want to say a make or break week for him because obviously this is only his second NFL game ever, but it is shaping up to just be the absolute perfect situation for him on Sunday night. If you were desperate, like maybe you were the guy that had Brandon Ayuk, maybe you had Deebo Samuel, I think you could go ahead and start Pearsall, but at the same time, he's not a must-start player. I'd be interested, does Underdog have anything out for the Niners receivers? They have Deebo higher, lower, 12.9 fantasy points. They have Kittle with a line out there as if Kittle's going to play. They have Ricky Pearsall at higher, lower, 9.85, which honestly is a little bit surprising because Underdog's half PPR. So if you look at Ricky Pearsall potentially at 9.85 higher, lower fantasy points, and go and compare this to some other receivers, like we can maybe compare this to Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman currently is sitting at higher, lower, 8.85 fantasy points. So Underdog has like Ricky Pearsall for a full point higher than Pittman. We have Pearsall ranked one slot higher than him, but like I said, I think you can afford to wait a week. Now, of course, you can come and clown on me after the Sunday night game when Ricky Pearsall drops 30, which I pray to God happens, but I would feel uncomfortable going through and jamming him in immediately. Hawkinson's going to be good to go week 9. Obviously, that doesn't tell us anything right now. So this is something that I was really hoping that we were going to have an update with by the time we did this stream. I mean, I specifically waited as long as we could with this live stream tonight to see if we could get a Tyreek Hill update. But we don't have anything. I saw a post on Twitter or something, Tyreek Hill making pottery with his wife. Doesn't help us know if his foot's good to go. Obviously, if Tyreek plays, he's an absolute must-start option. As of now, everything that I've read makes it sound like he is going to be playing. We just don't have confirmation. Dallas Goedert listed as out for week 8. Obviously, that was expectation, but I think you do have to start Devonta Smith for sure. We already talked about Spears being listed out. Calvin Ridley, not listed on the injury report for week 8. I think Ridley could be like a sneaky start if you really needed someone. Obviously, you have no Hopkins. He's had target volume as of late. The thing is, you're going up against Detroit, right? So against this Detroit Lions defense, we already know that they're not going to allow you to run the ball. And at the same time, you are like 11-point dogs. So more likely than not, we are going to get a lot of dropbacks, a lot of pass attempts for this Titans offense in the second half. Ridley's like the only wide receiver here left standing. So I wouldn't fault you at all to go through and plug and play like Calvin Ridley per se over. And honestly, you know what? With the hope that you possibly have Levis in there, I think I would play Ridley over Judy. I think I'd play Pearsall over Judy as well. I understand that Judy has Winston, but still, I mean, it's a horrible matchup against Baltimore. But anyway, looking at Ridley here, I think he could be a sneaky play given the game environment and the fact that he is 100% good to go. DK Metcalf listed as doubtful for week 8. So Metcalf wasn't at practice essentially at all. I would not be surprised if Metcalf not only misses week 8, but also misses week 9. I mean, if you're going through and trying to project this out, the Seahawks have a bye week in week 10. So, I mean, it would make a lot of sense for them to just go through and ask DK Metcalf to sit out the next 2 weeks. Looking at this, it's going to make Tyler Lockett definitely an interesting play here. We have Lockett as a top 24 wide receiver this week. I also have Jackson Smith and Jigba as a top 24 wide receiver this week. From what we've seen with the Seattle Seahawks offense so far this season is if they are trailing by multiple touchdowns, they'll completely abandon the run. They'll ask Geno Smith to drop back 50, 60 times in a game. And with no Metcalf, I think you have a ton of target volume going to those two receivers. And maybe Noah Fant is like the most desperation play you can have at tight end, but maybe viable. Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, not listed on the injury report. Like we said, I actually like the Jonathan Taylor touchdown mark on Underdog at the moment. Primarily because, one, you are getting a little bit of juice added on. You actually get a 1.08x multiplier. And at the same time, you have the vulture protection. So if he does get vultured by, say, another running back here, which I don't know why that would happen, but you get that refund with that pick'em. Ultimately, I know some people are worried about it being a tough matchup against the Texans rush defense, but in my mind, we go back and look at what Taylor had done through the first month of the season. The man was averaging 20 points per game. I absolutely have no hesitation here with Taylor. Keaton Mitchell listed as out. We talked about this in the live stream last night, but ultimately go through, drop Keaton Mitchell, drop Justice Hill if you have him. Like, obviously, there's no way you're ever starting either one of these running backs with a healthy Derrick Henry. And the thing is, even if Derrick Henry were to get injured, then at that point, they're split in the backfield. Like, Keaton Mitchell may have some, Justice Hill may have some others. So it's not like they have clear standalone handcuff appeal that you get with someone like Braylon Allen, that you get with somebody like Tyler Algier, where it's very easy to say, oh, if the starter goes down in front of him, he's a must-start option. You don't get that with Keaton. So if you can't put him on your IR anymore, I just drop him. Zay Flowers, another reason I was trying to delay this live stream for so long is I was hoping we were going to have news with Flowers. I'm sure obviously it drops tomorrow morning. Should be an early game. So especially since we have no London game, you're going to have all the information that you need by the time you need to make that start. Wasn't in practice early in the week. Did he get into practice on Friday? If Flowers is good to go, I'd probably just put him in flex consideration. We've talked about this for a while now, but Zay Flowers is going to be one of these boom bust receivers where the target volume is just not consistently going in his direction. And obviously, because it's one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he is the best receiver in said offense, he is going to have a high ceiling. The issue is just the floor will be incredibly low. Now going over, Alan Lazard listed doubtful for week 8. Nothing changes. Adams must start. Wilson must start. They were before and they're still now. Dawson Knox not listed on the injury report. Doesn't really change much. Kobe Myers expected to play. Doesn't really change much. Like we said, garbage offense. Don't care about Cedric Wilson. Taysom Hill. If you were completely desperate and you thought Taysom Hill was going to get some QB usage in the red zone, then maybe you could roll with them at tight end. But reality is probably not anything. Olave clears, but again, with the expectation that you're in a situation where the Saints offense is one of the worst offenses in the league, I personally wouldn't want to roll with Olave. I have Olave wide receiver 31 in the ranks this week. If you're looking at his underdog pick'em right now, he is higher, lower 50.5 receiving yards, which is funny enough, the same exact mark you have with Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey actually is more likely to score a touchdown here, according to Underdog as well. Maybe I'm disrespecting Ladd. Maybe I'm just upset with the week that we had a week ago. Where do they have Romeo Doubs, though? Because I still feel like we're too low on Doubs. They have Doubs actually lower than both Olave and Ladd with the receiving total, which is interesting. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to start any of the receivers in that range if we can avoid it. They are borderline flex plays. Olave will be a must-start guy the second that Derek Carr does come back, though, especially with the Shaheed injury. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be playing week 8. So one thing that we intended to do, I know people are going to hate us for this, but right now the Chiefs offense projects to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. And at the same time, you actually have no DK Metcalf. So I personally would rather start Mahomes over Geno Smith this week now that Metcalf is not going to be good. I actually think you could consider moving Mahomes a little bit higher than this against the Raiders. If you look at what sportsbooks are pricing in, at the moment, you have the 4th highest projection for the Chiefs offense in comparison to any other offense. I know a lot of people go, Mason, why do you talk about what sportsbooks are doing so much? Mason, why do you? Because we showed in a video before the season starts that sportsbooks know more than you do. They know more than I do. Using their projections is a very, very helpful tool when trying to rank these players from a week-to-week perspective. Now, going over, seeing if there's anything else that is interesting. We already talked about all these other things. Deontay Johnson being listed as out. Maybe I didn't update y'all with where we put Leggett in these rankings. Obviously, Leggett does appear to now be the wide receiver 1 in this offense, but at the same time, it's a horrible matchup going up against Denver. It's a garbage offense. Leggett hasn't proven anything. So I would still say in the vast, vast, vast majority of leagues, you are not starting Xavier Leggett. We have him down here ranked at wide receiver 54. Of course, I think he's worth a roster spot. If he's out there in the waiver wire, you probably go ahead and you probably grab him right now. Going over to what we have with our next update. I wish we had something with Travis Etienne, but right now he is a game time decision for week 8. I can see if Underdog has any picks out with the Jags. They have Etienne, higher, lower, 8.35 fantasy points. Do they have a Tank Bigsby projection out? They have Tank Bigsby, higher, lower, 64.5 rushing yards, 8.05 fantasy points. That's what's funny. Higher, lower, 64.5 rushing yards seems high, but then you remember, oh, this guy's going to have literally 0 as a receiver. So going through and looking at what we have currently at the running back rankings in Jacksonville, I have Bigsby and Etienne ranked right behind like the garbage running backs in garbage offenses that you know are going to have starting roles, like Tracy and Alexander Madison. Horrible matchups, horrible offenses, but guaranteed volume. Bigsby and Etienne have a bad matchup against the Packers, but I do think that they are talented options and a better offense than the Raiders and a better offense than the Giants. So for me personally, I would move Bigsby up dramatically from this point if Travis Etienne got ruled out. Like if Etienne got ruled out and we could comfortably project 15 plus opportunities for Bigsby, keep in mind he would have nothing as a receiver still. He is, well, I want to say my second most drafted running back on Underdog from a dollar spent perspective. So there's nobody I'm rooting for more effectively, other than maybe Ricky Pearsall at this point. But so I would love to come out here and I'd love to say, oh, Bigsby's going to melt face, is going to continue to do what he's done over the past few weeks. I really hope it happens. It's probably not. But anyway, if Etienne were to get ruled out, I think Bigsby jumps up to the range here, probably like right ahead of Najee Harris, right next to like Chase Brown, Rashad White, Chuba Hubbard in a full PPR format. Obviously, in a non-PPR league, you can move him even a little bit higher. The fundamental issue that you're going to have, of course, is the fact that Bigsby's just not going to catch the ball at all. I think that should be it for the Underdog injury report updates that we have. Let me go through, and I know some people in the chat were asking about T. Higgins. Let me see if we have anything else about Higgins here. I am operating under the assumption that T. Higgins is going to be playing. I haven't seen anything that makes me think otherwise. I know he was added with the quad, but it's always scary with Higgins because with Higgins, obviously, you have the history of injuries. I still have him as a must-start wide receiver, assuming that he does play. Now, I'm assuming that this is going to be a 1 p.m. game, considering the fact that it's 2 East Coast teams. I know it's weird to call Cincinnati an East Coast team, but they are on the Eastern time zone. Yeah, it's a 1 p.m. Eastern game. I still have Higgins as a high-end wide receiver too. Going over and looking at his Underdog pick'em, they have Higgins higher, lower 70.5 receiving yards. That is crazy if you're considering the fact that like Brian Thomas is higher, lower 59.5. So, and that's like the guy that we have ranked right next to Higgins. I think if Higgins plays, you have to go ahead and you have to jam in Higgins. Obviously, we are going to get the clarity by the time you have to make any of those decisions because it is that 1 p.m. game. But I think that should be it in terms of all the rankings updates that we have based off the injuries. Obviously, we're going to be waiting for some of those key players like ETN, Zay Flowers, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, T. Higgins, etc., etc., etc. I'll be live streaming later tonight, answering all the questions through flogfantasy.com. I'll be live streaming tomorrow morning, answering all the questions, giving injury updates as well. So just make sure you come out to those live streams if you want any more updates. And then obviously, if you wanted to check out any of these Underdog picks, I almost decided to take this one today with the 50% profit boost token that we had, but decided against it for whatever reason. But anyway, if you wanted to check out any of these Underdog picks, you can find that link in the live chat in the description. Using promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, if you're new to Underdog, you're going to be getting that free Dak Prescott pick, more than less than half a total yard for Sunday night. And it doesn't matter if you are new to Underdog, you've been on Underdog for a year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as you use code FLOCK. Yeah, if you signed up with code FLOCK 3 years ago, you will have the free Malik Neighbors pick, more than less than half a total yard, in your lobby for you for this Monday night game. So make sure you take advantage of that. I'm super happy I was able to get it for you. But also, if you wanted that free team review in the live stream after you use code FLOCK on Underdog, just make sure you set up an account on flogfantasy.com with the same email address. That way I can go ahead and hook you up with that free team review voucher. But I think that's all I got for you. Again, I really do appreciate you. You can find that link in the live chat description and comment section. Hoka Morans, I'm going to finish watching this game, and then I'll probably go live pretty late tonight because obviously there's the Yankees game, and I know a lot of y'all want to watch that, of course.